So the next time somebody asks you a question, Sean, in front of people, for example, use that as a way of demonstrating that, hey, you know what, that's a great question. It's no stupid question. That's a really great question. I appreciate you sharing with me that. Yes, I'm rash. A lot of times I'm rash about this. And you know what? I appreciate you and I hope that you can carry on to share with me these things because as a leader, I need information. The more information I have, the more data I have, the more I can make better decisions. If you say it that way, you will see a change in the historical records and you get more and more of these questions coming to you. And when you have that, you have more data points coming in. And when you have more data points, you have higher self-awareness.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Leadership Stack Podcast, the podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs to increase your leadership, teamwork, and profits. This is your host, Sean C., aka Mr. CEO at 22.
And you want to be able to spend most of your time and most of your effort creating value based on your A's, because your A's are what the world needs. So there's this quote I like by Howard Thurman, and he says that don't ask the world what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive, because the world needs people who have come alive.
Let's talk a little bit about the leaders' weaknesses. So I'm a leader. I lead a team of 50 millennials and centennials. I'm a millennial, so everyone's pretty much younger than me. Now, I have weaknesses that would tick me off. Like, I'm a very high dominant person. In the strengths spectrum, my top 5 would be self-assurance, maximizer, futuristic, activator, and command, in that order. So you could tell I'm a guy who's pretty snappy and I want things done and done well. And there are times when I fail, when my weaknesses get the better of me and I get angry for work that's poorly done. Now, what if those weaknesses that we take from F to C, we improve them? Yeah, but we're not really that spectacular with it because we didn't push it to A. What if they pour over emotionally, me being angry or the leader being angry because of this work not being done, or because this person did that or said that about this person or this client? How do we avoid that? How do we solve that problem?
Yeah, so that's a different thing. So when you talk about your strengths, and I would say that your strengths are extremely rare. So self-assurance, I also have self-assurance in our top 5. I have command and self-assurance for you. That's the less than 5% of the world's population have it. To put that together, I think less than 2% of the people have it. So you are extremely rare. And one of the interesting things about this tool of strengths, which we use very often, is the idea that some of the weaknesses you have actually are strengths used unwisely. So give you an example. For your activator, for example, that's quite straightforward. You want things to be done fast, right? Immediately. Don't talk so much, just do it. We do it, we know whether it's right or wrong. So it's almost like you take a rifle, you shoot, bam, then you aim after that. Right? So you aim after that because you know that shot went left too. Now I move it to right. So that's how you do it. But other people in your team, they might have a talent that's a little bit more careful than you. So they might have a talent, let's aim, and then shoot. So I don't want to waste a bullet. Right. So that's their mindset and that's your mindset. And that when those two mindsets come, they clash. So the weaknesses you have is actually your strengths. In terms of the Clifton strengths, your strengths used unwisely. So activator is really about the idea of like get things done fast. And I guarantee you, throughout your life, you'll see many times that the activator came and saved the day. And you were the hero because you took action fast. But yet I can almost guarantee you the statistics is around 75% of all the complaints that you've had in your life. Some majority of them is also the activator. Sean, you're too rash. You're always thinking about something and then you're just doing it without thinking so much. No, we need to be careful with the resources. There's a no, forget it. Just try. So that is the self-awareness journey. So that idea where strengths, when you bring in the idea of strengths, there's a 2-part to it. There's the light and the dark, and how you think, how you behave, your leadership style. Every leadership style that you have, your activator can be equivalent to a leader that takes action. So your leadership style, Sean, you're an action taker. What is great about it, you take opportunity when nobody else has seen it yet. What is bad about it, you waste resources and time when you could have actually thought about it closer. So that is something that's more of a self-awareness. So one of the things that I think your listeners will benefit is that think about the things that people say about you. oh wow, Sean is always a person who takes action really fast. And that then come up with that idea of a leadership style. Oh, he's an action taker. And if you flip that, you will get that idea where your team can be very upset with you. Sean is always very rash, but it's based on that leadership style of being an action taker. So another way of saying it, that those are also a weakness, but the weakness is more of like it affects your team in a very negative way.
It's a matter of awareness. Here's the thing. For a leader like me, for example, to be aware, you're the CEO, you're the president, you're the founder.
Yeah.
Here's the problem. Not a lot of people would say to your face that, hey, Sean, this is the problem with you. And sometimes we could be blindsided to it, totally unaware that we have that problem. People who are self-assured like you and me, we mostly think that things are good, right? Things are good. I'm good. I'm good at what I do. What could be wrong? We don't see the wrong side. We don't see the dark side. We don't see what's going badly already for other people. The problem is people don't want to speak up to you because you're the founder and CEO. How do you get over that? What's the solution for that?
Fantastic. That's a question that I get asked a lot in my coachings with leaders. One of the things that people say is that, how do I get more self-awareness if nobody speaks up, right? So the idea of speaking up is the idea of safety. It's actually boiling it down as really safety. You get safety, you get transparency, you get, hey, Sean, that really sucked what you just did. You get somebody who can actually say that to you because they know that tomorrow they won't get fired. So the idea of safety, and how do you create that safety is actually through the first conversation you had with that person, the very first conversation, and it builds on that. So for example, if they ask a question, so let's say they say, Sean, I think you are reacting too fast, right? You're a bit rash and all that. I think we should think about this. That first response that they have gives them the historical records of what should I do in the future. And if you say something like, you don't know anything, or if you say something like, I'm the boss, then that is a historical record in his mind to say that, you know what, then that's true and I will behave differently after that. And slowly the voice gets quieter and quieter. So for a leader, one of the most important things is that, and when I go through organizations, I know whether that organization has safety. You can call it psychological safety, you can call it relational safety, but if people are asking questions and they're able to actually question you back, why do you say that? I know that organization has safety. If nobody speaks up, because or when they think back or when they hear historical records, or you can call it gossip also, historical records of other people, you know what, you spoke to Sean, I tell you what, James, he spoke to Sean 2 years ago. Yeah, where is he now? He's not here, right? Yeah, he's gone, right? So I don't think, yeah. So be careful. So any kind of historical data, we want to build on it. And every one of us as leaders, there's a ton of historical data. It's already ingrained, and we call that culture already. So what you want to do is that you want to start to be very careful at very small things, because you can change. The thing about history is that you can start writing a new one. So the next time somebody asks you a question, Sean, in front of people, for example, use that as a way of demonstrating that, hey, you know what, that's a great question. It's no stupid question. That's a really great question. I appreciate you sharing with me that. Yes, I'm rash. A lot of times I'm rash about this. And you know what? I appreciate you. And I hope that you can carry on to share with me these things, because as a leader, I need information. The more information I have, the more data I have, the more I can make better decisions. If you say it that way, you will see a change in the historical records, and you get more and more of these questions coming to you. And when you have that, you have more data points coming in. And when you have more data points, you have higher self-awareness.
It's amazing. In fact, I would go even further and say, if you don't have the balls to tell me the truth, I'd fire you. I'm just kidding. But yeah, a lot of leaders today were desperate for that awareness, because it is a sickness. It's a cancer that plagues our organization when people don't tell us our blind sides. Yeah. It's a stink that we can't smell because it's on us, and we need people to tell us that. And that safety is so important. And how you said it about acknowledging when people speak up to you or even against you, but knowing that they want what's best for you and the organization, right? That matters. That helps a lot. So Jason, I've learned so much from you during this short span of time that we have, and I'm sure I'm going to learn more from you. Where can people contact you if they want to know more about their strengths and be more aware about themselves?
Thank you so much. So for us, we are on LinkedIn. You can search Coach Jason Ho. You can also go to our website where we have perfectperformance.org, perfectperformance.org. That's where we do all our client work. We do either coaching, we do talks, and also we do workshops. And the main thing for me, just to share that I have this belief, and that's where, if you ask me what energizes me the most, is there's this belief that everyone is built for greatness. The challenge we have as leaders is, what are each of them built? What are they built for? And they can be an ostrich, they can be an eagle, a penguin. If you know what they're built for, you know where they can get that greatness out of them. So if everyone is built for greatness, our leadership challenge is, how much do I know about my guys? What energizes them? What drains them? What makes them feel alive? And what that makes them go home and be so drained that they don't have time or energy left for their family and for their kids. So as leaders, we want to understand that, and when we understand that, we can be really inspiring leaders that can bring out the best in people.
That's amazing, Jason. Thank you so much for today, for your time. We learned so much from you, and we are better for it.
Thank you so much.
Oh, hey, and since you're here, can you do me a favor? Can you hit on the subscribe button and hit the bell button and select all notifications so that whenever we have a new video, you're going to be the first one to know. Until then, keep leading.
People still want the what. Whatever it is you're selling, whatever it is you're giving out as a service, people still want that. They still want your ramen. They still want your taho. They still want whatever it is that you have to offer. Guess what? It hasn't changed. You know what's changed? How are they going to get it?
Earlier, you introduced me as a man of God, leader of men. And I talk about in the book that everybody should have a vision statement. And that is my vision statement, man of God, leader of men. And what's the beauty of a vision statement is it helps you make decisions in your life, and you put those decisions against that vision statement. Does it hold true? Whatever I do is going to honor God, and it's going to be a leadership role. So when I come at a crossroads and say, should I do this? The question is, does it honor God? And the second question is it going to, help somebody in leading them?
Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Sean here, and today I have with me Mr. Tom Caresti, all the way from the US of A, and he hails, I just learned, hails from Hungary, and that's an amazing thing. We have in our podcast people from all over the world already, from New Zealand, US, Canada, from Singapore, from Kenya even, and today we have someone who is a John Maxwell trainer, coach, and speaker, just like I am, and it's really good to meet someone on the other side of the world who is from the same group too. And he's a leadership expert. He's also an author. He penned the book C-Suite and Beyond, and his background is full of his books. So that's really cool right there. He's also a strategic advisor, coach, educator, mentor, and speaker. He is also a man of God, and he calls himself also a leader of men, which is a very, very heavy title to carry with you. And I know I'm a leader. I lead 50 people in SEO Hacker. It's a full-time job, 24/7. Tom, I just want you to know that we are so grateful that you're here, and we're excited to learn so much from you today.
Thanks for having me. It's wonderful in today's technology that I could be sitting in California and be on the same call with you guys all the way half across the world in the Philippines. So 20 years ago, this couldn't happen, but we are where we are today, and there's some curses of technology, but there's some blessings in technology, and this is one of the blessings. So it's fun.
Amen. I mean, learning from a guy like you from halfway around the world, with growing up with a different culture, a different work environment, that's precious right there. And thanks to the pandemic, As strange as it sounds, thanks to the pandemic, we were able to, make time for this, sit down. Pre-pandemic, there were very few podcasts, very few people who also guested on podcasts. But due to the pandemic, there's a rise, a huge boom in podcast recording, personality, and people learning from them. So I want to go a little bit deeper on your journey. Let's talk about your journey. Why did you choose to become a leadership expert, a strategic advisor? We all have our stories, and there are some people in the podcast already who started out as a C-level executive. They're high flying in their career, right next to Warren Buffett, and then one day just realizes something, boom, turns into a coach and speaker. And I wonder, what's your story behind it?
Earlier, you introduced me as a man of God, leader of men. And I talk about in the book that everybody should have a vision statement. And that is my vision statement, man of God, leader of men. And what's the beauty of a vision statement is it helps you make decisions in your life, and you put those decisions against that vision statement. Does it hold true? Whatever I do is going to honor God, and it's going to be a leadership role. So when I come at a crossroads and say, should I do this? The question is, does it honor God? And the second question is it going to, help somebody in leading them? So it makes life actually for me much, much easier. And it doesn't change. It hasn't changed in the last, 15 or 20 years. And how did that vision statement form? How did I come to the fruition that I'm a leader of men? If I look back into early childhood, I always found myself in leadership positions. Situations happen, and usually there's a vacuum for leadership. And then somebody steps in and takes a leadership role in that particular instance. And I'm just going through my life from early childhood until, today, I've always found myself that whenever I was in a room, I was drawn to a leadership role, especially when there was a vacuum and there was a lack of leadership there. So that's just, the way I'm wired. That's the way God created me. That's the way I'm wired. So that's how I ended up where I am.
That's amazing. And how long have you been doing this?
Well, like I said, leadership, I can trace it back to when I was 12 years old on a soccer field. I was 12 years old playing with a bunch of 16-year-old kids, and I wasn't big enough to be a forward, so I was a midfielder. And, by the time, we were halfway through the game, I was basically, calling the plays and feeding the guys and, even scoring every once in a while. But everybody was looking to me. They were looking to me to call the plays and get stuff done. And I just found myself, well, wow, that's pretty cool. A bunch of 16-year-olds are looking to me as a 12-year-old to lead them. So I don't know. It's just God blessed me one of those things that it just, happens. And every part of my life, I was always in a situation where I felt comfortable leading. And not everybody does. It's a gift that you can train yourself to be a better leader. But there are some people who are natural leaders. They like doing it. I love doing it. There's people who get up on stage and they get stage fright. They hate public speaking. It's like, I don't know about the Philippines, but the U.S., they say, look, I rather pay my taxes. I rather be in jail than to get on a stage and be a public speaker. People are just, they're dreaded by it. And I love it. I'm a ham. Put me on a stage and I'll share my stories and I'll have fun and people will laugh, and just that's who I am.
Yeah. Well, here in the Philippines, it's also a very shy culture. So not a lot of people, but I would say we have a good number of people taking up the stage now. Maybe it's cultural impetus started by some very good men and women. So we're seeing a lot more speakers now here. Thank God.
And you're one of them, right?
I am. I speak on digital marketing. Not a lot. There's still not a lot of people here who speak on digital marketing. That's my business, so I speak on it. Some people get me also for leadership, entrepreneurship talks, and sales talks as well. I want to dive a little bit deeper on your book. Is it a new book that you released?
It's a relatively new book. It's about 6 months old. Actually, I just heard back from it's by HarperCollins. So I just heard back from HarperCollins. They said it's actually doing real well. So
amazing.
I'm blessed.
If I was CEO of a company or a COO, give me the top 3 reasons why I should pick up your book.
It'll make you a better CEO. It'll make you a better COO. When I wrote the book, oddly enough, the way the book was born is you and I are both public speakers. And one of the keys to becoming a good public speaker is sharing your stories, right? We connect with folks a lot better with stories than just examples. People learn much better through stories than somebody trying to teach them, who's quote unquote the expert, right? So I started writing down these stories that would help me with my public speaking. And then after a period of building that database, I said, well, what the heck? I got enough stories here to write a book. And then I wrote a book. It's really a collection of stories of successes and failures for myself and some others. And, that's how the book was born. So if you are in a C-suite already, or if you're just aspiring to be a C-suite, just reading the stories is going to be fun. You may relate to them because you may probably have experienced something similar already. So I just think it will make you a better leader. And I always love reading. I always love learning from others. It just makes me a better human being. I don't have all the answers. I don't claim to have all the answers. This is my story. Other people have their stories, and I hope to learn from them through their stories. And, anybody who's in a sweet seat and says, okay, I know it all, I don't need to learn anymore, I don't know. I think you better take a second look.
Yep, true that. Like people who think they're at the ceiling, they just stop learning. And life is all about learning and growth. And so if I pick up your book, what are some of the things that I'd be learning in specific?
Well, the central theme to my book, and this should not be a surprise because I'm a man of God, so faith is a very important part of my life. My leadership style is servant leadership. And servant leadership today is a kind of a buzzword, but everything that you find in a book is about servant leadership. And I believe that is a key to becoming a great leader, where people buy into you and buy into your mission and your vision. If you're there to serve them instead of you're there for them to serve you, I think you have a better chance of becoming a better leader.
True that. And Patrick Lencioni always says there's no other way to do leadership than to serve others, right? And if your motive is to be served and to climb up the ladder and get the perks, then don't lead, because the world will be a worse place with you around. You mentioned earlier in the pre-show that the book has 4 major topics. I don't want to preempt it here because it's your book and I want you to be the one to tell the audience. So can you run us by it one by one?
Sure. Just a little background again. The way I came across the 4 keys is as I started, I started writing all these stories down. And then I said, I can write a book on it. I said, well, how can I frame all these stories into a book? And one of the things that upon reflection I came to was, look, I've had some successes in my life and I had some failures in my life. And when I was successful, I found that these 4 key principles were all firing on all 4 cylinders. So things were working. And then some of the times in my life where things were not working too well, I looked at it and I said, well, not all 4 of those keys were there. Some of those keys were missing. So I said, okay, well, there's obviously a pattern here. Now let me ask a question and look at some successful companies and some successful leaders and to see, do they have those same 4 keys in common? So lo and behold, I said, yeah, they do. So that gave me the inspiration to actually write the book, to say, well, these 4 keys not only work for me, but they also work for other successful companies and leaders. So the 4 keys are, you have to have a very strong sense of who you are, what your character is. So as an individual, your character is extremely important. They're built on your values. And if you're a company, then your character is your culture. And in fact, if you're a startup company, the founder's character usually becomes a de facto culture for that organization until they start thinking about it, planning it, and changing it. All right. The second one I already shared with you, which is my vision. Every great company, every great leader has a vision for themselves and a vision for their company. The third one is strategic growth. Strategy, it's always fueled by growth. Nobody wants to be worse off than they were yesterday. They don't want to be poorer than they were yesterday. They don't want to be more out of shape than they were yesterday. They don't want to be worse looking than they were, yesterday. So it's all about improvement. So it's all about strategic growth. Growth is the key word. And strategic growth really has to be aligned with your vision. So don't be kind of distracted by the latest shiny object. And the fourth one, which is very dear to my heart, is team. You have to have a great inner circle. So when you build your team, make sure that they balance you. they balance your weaknesses. So you surround yourself with people of strength and where you are weak. You surround yourself with diverse thinking. That's also key. And diverse thinking really comes from diverse thinking, but also Latin Americans will think differently than Europeans, and they'll think, than Americans or people from the Far East. So diverse thinking also comes from geographically where you are. It comes from socially where you are. So that all adds to diverse thinking. And there's a fifth bonus key, and that is how to connect with people. And there's a world of difference between informing, communicating, and connecting. I've been to so many corporate presentations where somebody gets in front of a room and they think they have this great presentation, and all they're really doing is informing. They're not moving the people in the room. They're not really getting people involved. They're just kind of informing of the audience of why their point of view is correct and why everybody should adapt their point of view. And that's just not successful. And then you move to the next level where you start communicating and you start having a dialogue with Q&A and start taking into consideration people's, what's in it for them, how you can help them. So then a communication, starts. And then the highest level of communication is really connecting with people. And those are, you connect with people through emotional attachments. You don't connect with people through facts. You don't connect with people through data. You don't connect with people with results. You connect people through emotions. Once you learn that, and look, there was great communicators, in American politics. Bill Clinton, Ronald Reagan, they were great communicators. These people, John Maxwell, who's our hero, he's a great communicator. You watch John speak, and Nick Vujicic, I don't know if you ever seen Nick, but he's one of my favorite guys. This is a guy that was born with no arms and no legs. He's one of the most inspirational speakers you'll ever see. And it's really because he connects with you emotionally. So that's a lecture, I guess, of the 4 or 5 keys. And, I'd love to share some of the stories behind it, because that's what really makes him come to reality and come to life.
Before we go ahead and deep dive into it and dissect it, I just want to say thank you for bringing this book into the world. A lot of people say that when you write a book and finish it, it's like giving birth. It's the closest thing to a guy giving birth, right? Because it's just a lot of work and a lot of anticipation, and you don't know how the market's going to be receiving it or your target audience is going to be receiving it. So congratulations for that. Love it. C-Suite and Beyond by Tom Caresti. Look it up.
Oh, hey, and since you're here, can you do me a favor? Can you hit on the subscribe button and hit the bell button and select all notifications so that whenever we have a new video, you're going to be the first one to know. Until then, keep leading.
I'm talking to the wives that when we don't like something, we do something, we take matters into our own hands. We change the course, or we suddenly just don't follow, because that's going to affect the whole team. It's not just about a husband and wife this time or a family. It's the whole team.
Integrity, the root word integer, which means one or whole. And when you have integrity, you should be one man, one woman, wherever you are. You have to be one person. At home, when no one's looking. At work, same person. At school, same person. Because that's integrity. When you're a person of integrity, that is what you should be living.
Earlier, you introduced me as a man of God, leader of men. And I talk about in the book that everybody should have a vision statement. And that is my vision statement, man of God, leader of men. And what's the beauty of a vision statement is it helps you make decisions in your life, and you put those decisions against that vision statement. Does it hold true? Whatever I do is going to honor God, and it's going to be a leadership role. So when I come at a crossroads and say, should I do this? The question is, does it honor God? And the second question is it going to, help somebody in leading them?
First is culture. And we have tackled culture numerous times in the podcast, but that is really because it is so elusive on how people can grasp and concretize culture. It's not something that you're going to have a formula with. It's not something that I could just give you a blueprint of. What is so important about it that is one of the 4 pillars of your book?
Well, look, every organization is going to have a culture. It may be a culture that you haven't designed. Maybe it's a culture that you didn't want, but it's like an organism. It's going to happen. So I always tell people, look, you might as well take the time and the effort to try to design a culture that you want breathing in your living organization. Because if you don't spend that investment in time, it will be there. But it may be a toxic culture. It may be a culture that you don't want in your organization, but because you didn't pay attention to it, it kind of just took a life of its own and it happened. The second thing I'll talk about a culture is never negotiable. So if you're in an organization and you can have, let's say it's a young organization and you don't know what your culture is going to be, you can have all the discussion up front to say what our culture should be. But once you decide what that culture should be, you can't have dissension. It's going to be that culture. And if people don't buy into that culture, then they don't belong in your organization. In fact, I tell young executives all the time, and because I guess in the old days, when I was a younger executive, 3 career moves in a span of about 25 or 30 years was, that was acceptable. Now you have people changing jobs, 3 jobs in 5 years, right? So there's a constant. That's the as constant turnover. But I tell folks, look, it's very easy in today's world to look up a company and look at their website, look at some articles, and as soon as you look at their website, their culture and their vision should be apparent. If you don't see it or if you don't understand it, that's a yellow flag. And then also do yourself a favor and say, could I live in that culture? Could I, be really good and achieve stuff in that culture? How will I function in that? And if it's not clear to you, don't even take the interview, because I guarantee you within 6 months or a year, you will leave because you will hate it, or they will ask you to leave. Right? So that's why culture is so important in an organization. And then it's also equally important because the culture of an organization is the equivalent to a person's character. When you have your character, I see people, and I even heard this in one of the teachings or one of the podcasts, that you should have a different character where you're at work, and it's okay to have a different character at work or at school or at home or whatever. And I say that's the furthest thing from the truth. I have the same character, whether I'm at home, whether I'm at work. And it wasn't always like that, but I learned that if you don't, you become schizophrenic, because you say, okay, well, what situation am I in now? How should I act? When I was a younger executive, I was really, really professional and serious at work. I said, look, you can't mix relationships and friendships at work, because you have to be, very professional at work, and you have to conduct yourself that way. And then in the social circle, in my private circle, I was pretty much a wild maniac guy, right? I had energy, but the energy that I channeled at work was very professional energy, and the energy that I channeled in play was, crazy. I spent probably about 6 months to 9 months working with these 2 gentlemen. We did a project in the Midwest. So every Monday we would get on a plane, fly out to Kansas City, and work there for the whole week, and then fly back on Friday. So during the week we were always together. We went out, we had dinner, we had drinks. So they saw me, and then I guess about a year and a half later, they came out to our weekend house as guests. And about halfway through the night, they pulled my wife over, and she goes, "Tom, there's seriously something wrong with your husband." So Kathy goes like, "Well, what do you mean?" She goes, he's like very different. He's like totally a different person. Like he's schizophrenic. You got to check that. And Kathy goes, "That's just Tom." So that kind of, the light went on and said, look, you can have fun at work. You don't have to be a crazy guy at work, but it's okay to form friendships. It's okay. In fact, it's healthy to form friendships at work. And then as I grew on later in life, we made it to a point always to have, weekends with wives, co-workers that we work together and build that family atmosphere. That's kind of, one of the lessons, I learned about, character, of being consistent on where you are. And the other thing, if I could just share with your audience, there's 3 questions every person should answer themselves. It's what I call Venn diagram. You got 3 circles, and then each circle contains a question, and where the 3 circles intersect, that's your sweet spot. So the first question is, who are you? Ask yourself a question, who are you? And who I am, and I mentioned to you earlier on, is I'm a servant leader. So I'm very clear on who I am, and not everybody is. And I encourage everybody that's listening to you to identify who they really are. The second question is, what are you passionate about? Right. So I'm passionate about helping younger executives become better executives. I'm passionate about getting older executives to be better executives. So I'm passionate about helping folks become better. And then the third circle is knowing what you're good at. If you have a clear picture of knowing who you are, knowing what your passion is, and knowing what you're good at, and so many people that I know they're not passionate about what they do. They do it for a paycheck. Life is too short. Don't do it. If you're not good at something, some people think they're good at it, but actually they're not that good at it. So just do some self-evaluation, have other people evaluate you and say, hey, Tom, you think you're good at this, but you should maybe do something else because you're really not that good at this. But once you find that sweet spot, I guarantee you that you will be successful. I learned something else.
I want to rewind a little bit because you mentioned something that's interesting. The podcast or information that you mentioned earlier, where someone said that you have to have a different character at work and at home. And it is the opposite of integrity, right? Integrity, the root word integer, which means one or whole. And when you have integrity, you should be one man, one woman, wherever you are. You have to be one person. At home, when no one's looking, at work, same person, at school, same person, because that's integrity. When you're a person of integrity, that is what you should be living. When you mentioned that culture is the same as character for an individual, you mentioned there the high importance of culture, because character is very important. That's where your behavior stems from. That's where attitude stems from. All your relationship stems from your character, how other people see you and treat you. And you mentioned that you have to have culture by design. You have to be intentional at it, and it is built by your core values. With character, for an individual, is it the same? Do you design your character? And if so, how do you do it?
Well, I think with character, it's a combination. You said it starts with values, right? And values are something that I believe you learn at a young age, right? So one of my values is honesty. Now, how did honesty become one of my values? Well, honesty became one of my values when I was like, I don't know, maybe I was like 6 or 7 years old. And I said apparently what was a blatant lie to my grandmother. And my grandfather pulled me over and smacked me across the face so hard that my head bounced off the wall. The smack hurt, but what kind of woke me up even more than that, it was like, what could I have said that ticked off my grandfather so much that he smacked me so hard across the face? And then when I put it all together, I was like, all right, well, it's not good to lie, right? It's not good to lie because A, I got smacked, but B, I really got somebody really upset. So that's a value that I learned when I was 6 or 7, and that's a value that's with me today. So I think your character is formed as a result of the environment you're in and really the way God created you. So look, if you're in an environment where you see your parents being dishonest and you see your family being dishonest and their lie, and then probably that's unfortunately that may be one of your values that you grow up with and you adapt because that's what you saw growing up. So values, I think, are extremely important in establishing character, and it comes from your environment, what you learn, and it also comes from how God created you.
It's so funny because when you mention environment, your environment has a culture, right? You have a culture at home. So you could argue that your character is a product of your culture at home. And if you become a founder of your own company, that character that you have becomes your de facto culture, which you mentioned earlier on the pre-show. Here's the thing, Tom, a lot of founders, a lot of leaders, when we're starting up, we pay no attention to these things. Culture is a buzzword that flies over our heads. I know it was for me, like culture. I don't have time to think about that. I only have time to think about where am I going to get the next meal for me and my team. So what happens is you're completely right. My character just seeps in to the culture, but it doesn't form, concretize, or make the culture. What happens in between that and finally the founder being woken up and sitting down and saying, okay, this is not going well. I have to design my culture.
You know, the sign will be dissension, right? The sign will be dissension. So the reason character is a de facto corporate culture, because think about it, right? And this actually was a lesson for me, because you know, when I used to work for large companies, whether that was Colgate-Palmolive, whether it was Philips Electronics, whether that was Reckitt Benckiser, when I had to hire somebody, it was an easy draw. I mean, I would get people with executive MBAs from Oxford or Harvard. You know, they all wanted to work for us because the brand name of the company stood for something, right? That was the draw. And then I opened my own business in 2004, 2005. And, you know, they were like, well, who the heck are you and why should we work for you, right? So in a startup organization, the founder's character is so important, because that's why people will come to work for you. They buy into you because you have no company. Right? It doesn't exist. It's an idea. You're an entrepreneur. You're starting something up. So the only draw is you. So either people buy into you, they buy into your character, and then the company grows because some great people, some talented people came and bought into you, and your company grew. Or your character wasn't that strong, and you know, people maybe tried, but then they said, nah, I don't buy into this. This is not for me, and they left, and your company didn't grow. And then if you're mature enough, I mean, one of the things, when the three of us, I mentioned to you early on that I have two business partners. One is a retired Navy SEAL, and the other guy is a very smart marketing guy, and our company is called Culture Force. I said, well, look, you know, if we're all about culture and trying to transform companies' cultures into a positive culture environment, how about if we start with our own culture, and let's define our culture going to be. So we spent, you know, a bunch of time together, the three of us, and say, what will be our culture, right? Because the other thing that happens is in that example, right? So you have, if you're a single entrepreneur, then it's really, you know, just your culture. But when three people get together and they do not pay attention to the culture, well, everybody's character is going to be a little bit different. And if you don't address that elephant in the room, you know, 4 or 5 years down the road, one of the guys who are partners, whose character is very different than the other guy's character, and his character maybe didn't dominate, and the other person's had a stronger character and that dominated, you know, like 3 or 4 years down the line, they're going to say, well, this is not what I signed on to. I'm out, right? Because one partner's character dominated, and they never addressed what the culture of the organization should be. It just became the de facto culture by whoever had the strongest character. And then ultimately, somebody says, not for me anymore.
Really good point right there. And Culture Force, that's an interesting name.
Oh, hey, and since you're here, can you do me a favor? Can you hit on the subscribe button and hit the bell button and select all notifications so that whenever we have a new video, you're going to be the first one to know. Until then, keep leading.
We have some companies in our world today that actually was kind of like that. You know, they kind of stole the idea. We have Uber, we have Lyft, Grab. They have the same business model, but the first ever one that did that business was actually Lyft. But we don't know them now because the others stole the idea and flew with it.
To bring the people element back into that hiring process could make a huge difference in the benefit to both the company and the employees in terms of fit. Are you a right fit? Where can we best place you to allow you to play to your best strengths and align with your highest values? You know, then you have to come back your why, your purpose, your mission, and keep coming back to that, because when the going gets tough and things are hard and, you know, you're losing team members or, you know, all the stuff that can happen and does happen, coming back to your why and your purpose and your mission makes it all worthwhile.
How about the people who were so passionate and the purpose was clear at the get-go? I mean, I'm going to take you as an example since we already have your story here. You started out, you said you love your job. You were at your 20s and then moving to your 30s, 40s. Somewhere in between, the line got blurry. It's not, I don't believe it's just you're a bad boss, although that does contribute a lot to kind of muddying down your passion and your purpose, right? But somewhere in between, and this happens to a lot of people, and they lost their passion. because they lost their purpose. When does that happen usually? And what triggers that?
Often it's such an unseen thing that because it can happen so slowly, it usually just gets eroded away over time. I think what happened to me was, and I don't think in my 20s when I was loving what I was doing, that I realized I was fulfilling my purpose. I just was doing what I loved. And looking back now, I can see that it was really aligned with my values. And I think then we change, we grow, don't we? We move to new jobs, we move to a different career, and we think that that's going to be the golden bullet. And it isn't. The grass is always greener. And that's the danger, I think, because it can be very difficult to recognize that the passion and the purpose are disappearing, because it can be such a slow, unseen process. And you can get 10, 20 years down the line, turn around and look back and go, how did I get over here? I was supposed to be over there. And I think, and that's the danger, because people don't realize it's happening, when either they get so sick, they're so stressed out or whatever, or, they hit a milestone birthday or something like that makes them just stop, or, a global pandemic has made a lot of people stop and reevaluate their life, that you can turn around and look back at your journey and say, was I really supposed to be here? And that's when it happens. But I think overall, it's a slow sort of eroding of your purpose and your mission.
And this is why it is so important to have, if not a daily, then every other day, right? To just stop, pause, take a walk, think, breathe the fresh air, journal, and realize, am I still on track with my life's purpose?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more.
When it comes to the ripple effect, and you mentioned that a lot of people in the work that you used to have are miserable. And sadly, that's the majority of the companies that we have today. How do you, a company or an organization that would beat the odds and not have people who are miserable, who are moaning about it, how do you have a truly happy organization?
I think, well, first of all, it's about having one clear mission, isn't it? That is linked to strong values and a strong sense of purpose that we've talked about. And then it's bringing people in who want to contribute towards that purpose. It's getting the right people, understanding people's own values so that you can then fit them into, the role that's going to help get the best from them. Lead from the front. Demonstrate that leadership thinking, and like you say, be the leader that you want your other leaders to be, because by role modeling that behavior, I think there's so many leaders in the world who think it's cool to be sending emails at 2 a.m. to demonstrate how hard they're working, and just as one example, but that then makes the workforce feel that they should be doing the same. The more leaders we have that sign off at whatever time, the more they will encourage their work-life balance. And that's a really overused term, but it really is. It's, the yin and the yang, realizing that we need both the high energy work ethic as well as the downtime.
It's a ripple effect. Yeah. Now, I'm not going to say that I'm not guilty, but usually in our culture, we also have a disclaimer: do not reply because it's late. Reply on the next working day. So I make it a point to say that. For me as a leader, it's just more of, if I don't say it, I'm going to forget it. So I have to say it. But it depends on the type of leader you are. If you're like a dominant personality, you want things just going, which I am. That's how I approach things. When you mentioned earlier that it's about getting people who want to work with you, carry on the mission. Now I'm wondering, do we need coaches, life coaches, in the hiring process after the HR, before the HR, to ask people those questions like, what's your purpose? Do you have core values? Let's see if it's aligned with our teams or with our companies. How necessary is that?
I think that HR is typically not very people driven. HR is typically quite process driven, and to bring the people element back into that hiring process could make a huge difference in the benefit to both the company and the employees in terms of fit. Are you a right fit? Where can we best place you to allow you to play to your best strengths and you'll align with your highest values. So yes, I don't necessarily think it needs to be a life coach. I think it's just about enabling those hiring departments and giving them the skills to see the CV, to see beyond the skill set, because there's so much more than that. And I think a lot of people don't always, or it's not even on their radar that they should be looking at what their purpose is in life. I think, it's like I said, I think we just trundle along. We just think that, oh, well, this is okay. We get bogged down by mediocrity and being average because that's okay. And it's easy. Whereas we could be performing so much better if we just acknowledge where we want to be going and tapping into our true potential. So I don't necessarily think it needs a life coach sort of role within those businesses, but I would certainly say that those departments could be enhanced by having some of those skills. Yeah, for sure.
That's an amazing answer. My wife is a certified Gallup strengths coach, and I'm horrible at hiring. I now wonder how I was able to found and grow this company with my horrible hiring skills. But now she's the interviewer before me. So when she passes someone, it's an automatic pass, and I just talk with them for formality. But she's a really good people reader, and she does use her coaching skills to make sure that we hire the right person. And she rejects like 90 to 93%, I think, of the applicants, which is amazing. It's an amazing number. It's a scary number, but it's an amazing number at the same time, because that means we're getting really people who best fit our culture.
Absolutely. And you having that sort of pre-qualifying process beforehand by someone that is skilled at identifying people's strengths is, getting you the best people for your team, which is amazing.
Yeah. We're all about serving our listeners about how they can improve their processes, how they can change, be a better leader. And this is really a really good approach and a really good advice right here that we're all getting. And I realize now that the reason why our hiring process is so good is because I have a coach right there in the middle of it, or at the tail end. Now I'm wondering if you're familiar with Patrick Lencioni. He's the big deal when it comes to organizational health, and I follow him. I've read a lot of his books. He mentions in some of his podcasts that if you hire a coach for some of your people, it's going to be really good for their next career shift, but often not when they're with you. So, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I've had clients who have had coaching within their workplace, and I always say, surely that coach is a little bit biased because they want you to stay. They have a hidden agenda, regardless of how much they believe so. They don't want that person to leave that company, right? Which is why a lot of the time when people come to me completely independently, they are looking, even whether they know it or not, they're looking for something else. They're looking for something more. They're looking for the next right thing for them. They're looking for their own progress and development, and that can only come with doing that in an independent way. So I do think there is a danger, and work coaches are great, work mentors, all the rest of it. But if that coach is doing their job to the best of their ability and bringing out the best of that person might not be there for much longer.
That makes sense. That makes sense. There's a conflicting trajectory there. It's a pretty tough game to play if you're the coach, right? Because you want to help the person to the best that you can.
And if they are, I guess it depends if they're an independent consultant type that is truly independent of the company, or if they're an employee that just happens to have a coaching role within their remit. They're two very different things with two very different outcomes potentially as well.
Oh, hey, and since you're here, can you do me a favor? Can you hit on the subscribe button and hit the bell button and select all notifications so that whenever we have a new video, you're going to be the first one to know. Until then, keep leading.
So I think no matter how passionate you are about something, if there's no demand for it, or if you're not number one, it's not going to work out for you. So practicality, I think, is more important in this case.
because if you're practical, you know what's gonna feed yourself, you know what's gonna feed your family, even if you're not passionate about the work, but it's what works for you, then definitely go for that.
The root cause is always you're poor in spirit. You haven't fed your spirit. You haven't had the time to pause and think about what you lack in terms of faith, in terms of your walk with God, in terms of your personal growth and improvement. And a lot of people who struggle with depression, I believe, spend a lot of time not thinking. From Mitch, how can employers manage depression in the workplace? Yeah, perfect question for you, JM. How can employers qualify feelings of sadness as reasons for employees not being able to come to work?
Okay, so this is very important, especially nowadays, wherein a lot of people are really going through a lot of mental challenges, especially people who are working from home. So I think one of the things that I can give as an example, I know someone from Australia, and they have, like, in a week, they have that one they were in, they really ask question to their colleagues and to their employers as well, like, how are you doing today? And they really allot time to answer that question. So I think just also having that time in order for your employees to have that safe space for them to let you know what's going on in their lives, it's very important to manage depression even before it starts. Meanwhile, when there is already depression, it actually depends, Sean, on the level of depression. There are depression that is still normal, quote unquote, but there are depression as well wherein it's already considered as clinical depression. So when it comes to clinical depression, you need to be able to consult a professional already, a professional help for that in order to help your employees. And in order to manage depression, besides what I mentioned earlier, what's important, not just for the employees, but for the employers as well, is for you to really take care of yourself mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. So make sure that there's support for that as well, for them to be able to know that there's support from the company, and there's also like a way for you to help them. For instance, like have an event for your employees in order for them to be able just to know if they're already going through depression. So something like that. So there's a lot of things actually with depression, Sean, and just a few things in order for you to know if you're going through depression is that there's extreme, okay? So if there's already like extreme things in your life that is going on like for more than 2 weeks already, like if either you eat a lot or you don't have an appetite, okay, two extremes, or you just want to sleep, like all day you just want to sleep, or you couldn't sleep. So extreme things, and if there's no longer like passion to do the same things that you ought to enjoy before. So those are just some of the things that you can look for, like a sign if you are having depression already or if your employee is having a depression already. So I hope that helps.
That really does. I'm not the expert when it comes to depression. We've had a couple of people struggle with this actually. I wouldn't say I'm the most brilliant help that they've ever gotten, but what I do believe about this topic, which is a sensitive topic, is a lot of people tend to not feed their spirit. You know, it might be a hard teaching to hear coming from me, but people who have faith, you know, who believe in God and believe in the spirit will understand what I mean. We're not just meat and bones. We're thinking beings with a spirit. We consider the heart and the brain as important parts of our functioning body. The spirit is also a very important organ that's invisible. You can't see it, but it is as important as your heart and as important as your brain. And the spirit needs to be fed, so it has kind of like an appetite, like your stomach. And if it is not fed, I think that is where the depression creeps in, because you lose the appetite to live. You know, life becomes bland, it's lackluster. And it could be a slew of different triggers, but I think the root cause is always you're poor in spirit. You haven't fed your spirit. You haven't had the time to pause and think about what you lack in terms of faith, in terms of your walk with God, in terms of your personal growth and improvement. And a lot of people who struggle with depression, I believe, spend a lot of time not thinking. We have, as a generation, lost our ability to think, really think. And sadly, that's because of the advent of the internet and unlimited entertainment that we have. We just don't need to think. We can be entertained 24/7 today. And that, I think, contributes to the spirit of depression. I can't really say so much about it, but what I do know is part of it, maybe a good part of it, is about the spirit, and you have to feed your spirit.
Sean, like what you said, I think all of us were a tripartite man, right? We have body, soul, and spirit. So just like what you mentioned, it's very important for us to feed those three, especially the spiritual part as well. I just want to quickly add on to that as well. With depression, the triggers of that are the different seasons also that someone goes through, or the transitions. With all of us, it's possible. Okay, it's possible for someone to go through depression because of the transitions that we're going through right now. So what Sean is saying is that you need to really take care of your spiritual man as well, and as well as your physical man, and of course your soul as well. So that's your heart, your will, and at the same time your emotion. So you need to be able to manage all those. But if you're going through depression, okay, even King David went through depression, right, Sean?
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of people in the Bible as well. But what helped them was really clinging onto God and being honest, like, Lord, I'm feeling this, I'm going through this, can you help me? And so, it's okay if you're going through depression. Pray to God and just cry out to him,
Good
right?
addition to that. Yeah, even the king, one of the most powerful kings during their time was King David, and he felt depressed. A lot of problems, family stuff, and he sank down. And he wrote about it, right? My bones is being worn out, everything. His spirit seems to be drained, and he cried out to God. Really good stuff. That's something that I would most probably do when I feel depressed, or when I don't feel good, when I don't feel okay in my spirit. Follow-up question from Mitch. Some creative thinkers draw inspiration from feelings of hurt, and they end up producing good work. However, for others, those are stoppers. How can one be productive when depressed or unmotivated? I think I'll let you take this one first, Jay.
Sakit naman, Mitch, ng question mo. Okay. I can relate with the question, Sean, because there are times wherein my place of hurt will be my place wherein I will be mostly creative as well. But there are times wherein it's actually one of those major things that can stop me as well. And one of the things that I learned is that the thing that can stop me is fear. What about fear? It could be fear of going back to that pain while you're creating something good out of it. Or number two, fear also about what other people would say. So I think it's very important that number one, you recognize what's stopping you. And number two, be courageous, because you'll never know. You'll never know whom you're going to help with the creativity that you'll be able to draw from that hurt. And I just want you to know also that if you're hurting right now, please don't get stuck there, okay? I like the question of Mitch because it's like an encouragement that if you are in a place of hurt right now, turn it to something good. Turn it to something that can serve God and others. I think that's how you can be productive when you're depressed or unmotivated, really to create something that will serve not just yourself and the pain that you're going through, but really thinking about how it can also help the other people around you.
Really good stuff. I couldn't say it better. If I'm going to have to add to this, personally,
for me, if I am in a bad place, I'm more of paralyzed and not productive at all. But I do agree that a lot of people write songs when they're in a place of despair, depression, or hurt or loss. The hymn "Amazing Grace" was actually written by a guy who lost his family in a shipwreck. So it takes a huge amount of spirit, I guess, to be able to still produce that kind of work while you're in your toughest moments. I don't think I'm there yet in terms of having that kind of spirit, but I hope that when that hits, I would learn to be that way. Oh, hey, and since you're here, can you do me a favor? Can you hit on the subscribe button and hit the bell button and select all notifications so that whenever we have a new video, you're going to be the first one to know. Until then, keep leading.
Try to find a business that you're really passionate about it, that you can actually work and not feel exhausting. Because, man, if you need to spend 8, 10, 12 hours every day doing something, try to find something at least that you like at the end of the day.
So being authentic and remaining authentic, you're actually helping out yourself, which is first, but also in the long run, you're helping yourself out as a leader because somebody's looking for you. Somebody's looking for that in you so that they can have somebody to show them the way. And so my thing is trying to create a pipeline through my nonprofit for someone to spend money with us without them having to go ahead and spend money to get the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding so that they can go out and feed their family. So that's what the basis between creating I Won't Starve Academy was about. Successfully being able to teach African Americans how to be entrepreneurs.
I mean, you've been struggling with this being convicted by the government for things that were influenced upon you when you were younger, and you were just trying to get hustle in, but it was in the wrong crowd, wrong industry. What were some of the things that you learned about leading yourself during that entire ordeal? And congratulations on being pardoned. You mentioned the pre-show just last month. That's a big deal. What are some things that you learn about yourself? What are some things that you learn on how to lead yourself better?
Well, I definitely learned that I am a miracle. That's why I was looking at a miracle, because there's so many people that don't come back from that. A lot of people that get turned down from the amount of jobs that I've been turned down from, just go back to hustling. I was not bad at it. I was actually good at it. I made a lot of money. I actually was a lot less confusion, being perfectly honest. But I did learn that I'm stronger. I did learn that I control it. I became all these things as a felon, not before I became a felon. I became all this as a felon. And it really dawned on me last month because people asked me, what did that mean to me? And I couldn't answer it at first, but as the days went by, I said, wow. Because, I'm doing these type of things all the time, or I'm doing the speaking engagements and people read my bio. And I said, wow, all this stuff happened while I was a felon. So I'm looking at other individuals who are like, I'm a felon, I can't do anything. But all this stuff happened while I was a felon. I became a felon. I was convicted my last year of college. So most people would have quit and said, forget this, but I didn't. So I knew I had fight in me. I knew I lived to my core values, which is not to quit, which is, my independence. I fight for that every day. I'm still loyal. That's why I'm doing what I'm talking about with my nonprofit. I'm still 100% loyal to myself, to where I come from. My book, You Won't Starve, that's what I created that for. Because once I did I Won't Starve, that was about my story. You Won't Starve was me giving it back, because I didn't go the conventional route. I didn't go and do it the way everybody else would have told you to do it. I didn't even do it the way I told people to do it, because I wish I had a job and to make it a little bit easier. I'm not, so I tell people, you have a good job, keep the job, start the business on the side. And I believe in that. But because it's rough. It's very rough to do it the way I did it. It takes a toll on you. You lose friends, you lose family members because they don't understand what you're going through. And if you choose to continue going down that path, you're going to be going about it alone. Sometimes even the person laying next to you in your bed don't get it because the vision wasn't given to them. The vision was given to you. And so being a visionary is somewhat of a burden, because when you get that vision, you're kind of catapulted 10 years, 20 years in advance, in your dream, and then you come to you right back where you were, and you're like, why did I even see that? And then so now it's about you walking down that path by yourself sometimes, because if you don't have people to believe in you, you still got to go. You still got, more about the outside influence, nothing like that. And I did that. I've been the ridicule. I've gotten cars repossessed and, almost got put out my house and things of that nature. And them same people who talked about me ask for money now. So, but I don't put them on them like that. But I don't, make them feel bad about it. It's just, they remember, I remember too. I was the person you wouldn't take advice. I saw this years ago. I'm not saying nothing different than I said before. My book, You Won't Starve, you can go on my YouTube page and find the stuff I'm talking about. You Won't Starve in 2013. Well, 2013 was one of the years when my car was repossessed. So I was still talking about this stuff on YouTube, but it wasn't until I came to a certain point in my life.
Hey, Jay, one of the things that I'm wondering about is during that time, you mentioned that how you did it was rough and you wouldn't recommend that for other people. Now, I'm wondering if you had the chance to go about and do it all over again, like rewind a bit until when you were starting, what were some of the things that you would do differently as an entrepreneur?
Oh, wow. Yeah, man. You know what? I would literally study. I went off of, I just was running, man. I just dove into it. Patience. I tell everybody, I didn't have any patience when I was younger. 15, 20 years ago, I had no patience for nothing. I wanted it right now. And now I'm just extremely patient. I can see the 5-year plan down the line and I can see it developing. I get a chance to stop and smell the roses, and I celebrate every win, now, even the small ones. That's what I would do differently. Just be patient. Young Jay was not patient at all. And I missed a lot of money, a lot of great scenarios because of it. I would pick up and just move to different locations, start trying to do business in other places. I was just doing whatever and sitting down. It's hard to grow when you're not planted. So once I got planted, so many things happened. I wasn't a speaker before I got here, before I came back down here. I wasn't a trainer. I didn't have any books. I wasn't even a photographer. So, me giving almost 10 years to one location and sitting down, God did so many amazing things through me. When you plant the seed, you got to allow that thing to grow, and I would never let grass grow under my feet when I was young. I was always on the move. So being patient is the thing that I would do differently. I was never patient.
That's definitely one of the hallmarks of an entrepreneur as well. Patience is not really the strong suit. And I know a lot of startup entrepreneurs, the founders themselves. I myself I don't have that as a strong suit when it comes to work. I might be patient when it comes to driving because people cut in front of me. I don't mind. But when it comes to work being done, deadlines, I always try to squeeze it in. And I think it is the hallmark of a founder to be that impatient. And as you grow, as you learn, as you scale up, then we learn to be a little bit more patient, because then we realize, oh, okay, my expectations are out of this world, and I should lower that down, tone it down a bit. And but yeah, so you mentioned that it's rough going. You're not gonna recommend that to other people. You're gonna recommend them to keep their jobs while doing things on the side, starting their businesses on the side. I find it to be a little bit strange, although it is the safer route. It is much safer route than jumping ship and going all in with a business, which is far riskier. But on the other hand, you learn a lot when you do it that way. When you jump ship and just go all in the entrepreneurship route, and you got a lot of energy as well to put in the business. So what are some of the other things that for you would change, or you would not allow yourself to be doing when you were younger?
Well, again, going back to that point about the job situation, I teach people about something called entrepreneurship as well. And that's because everybody doesn't want to be an entrepreneur. Everybody's not equipped to be an entrepreneur. However, you can actually adapt the entrepreneurial spirit. People attack jobs for the wrong reasons. And so I'm not saying be at the wrong job. I'm not saying be at a job that you're miserable at, or a job that you don't like. I like to talk to kids, especially like right in high school, because you're still at that age where you know what you want to do, and you're right before the parents and right before the guidance counselors and all these other people who the life has kicked their behinds, start, raining on your parade. I'm saying go get your job. So for training purposes, so you can learn. Yeah, most people go for jobs for the wrong purposes. People are going to jobs. Hey, let me just make some money. Okay, well, you make $40,000 this year. You're going to need more next year or the year after that. Most jobs aren't giving you, those raises that fast. And so you don't go to the job for the money. You go to the job that has training. You go to the job that has room for you to grow. Because every new position you learn, right? But you learn on their dime. If they're training you, they're paying for it. I got coaching certifications. I paid out of pocket. When you somebody working a job, they're paying $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 for you to get the same certification. I'm in certification classes. I'm the only one that's not coming from a job. I paid out of pocket. And so you leaving out of this job after 5 years with 5 or 6 certifications, now you can go and consult, immediately getting 5-figure checks, where I had to break my neck to do that. And I'm luckily, me being an entrepreneur, I'm not afraid to reinvest in myself. And I understand that's one of the ways for you to grow faster, but a lot of people are not going to be that way. And so if I had the opportunity to attack a job and say, okay, well, this job is going to pay for my coaching cert and my other coaching cert and then another coaching cert. And then when I decide to leave, I got 3 coaching certifications where I can immediately go into 5-figure checks. I don't need another job, and then I can also use that job as a reference because now this is a major corporation and I've done coaching or training on this major level where the people in that community is going to respect it. And they're immediately going to respect my resume. I'm building from scratch. So I went from coaching people for free for $100, $200. It took time for me to start getting $5,000 a month from somebody. That took a long time. And it took time for me to go ahead and reinvest in myself, and they can see letters behind my name or see that I have this certification or I'm a part of this community before they say, okay, I'm going to, work with him. So these are the things that I was able to see through hindsight and would have made me go by quicker. So if you got love for people, you won't tell your kid to go through the same hurdles you went through. So I'm not saying don't go to entrepreneurship, but I'm going to just give you the easier route. I'm not going to tell you the route where you got to jump over go through the bridge that's shaky, go through this way. I'm going to tell you the better route to go and do it to make it a little bit easier on you so you can have you can get your success a lot faster than I do.
That's amazing. I never saw it that way. I'm a promoter of entrepreneurship here but yeah, good stuff. I mean, if you can get the certification for free, that's a big deal. It is a bit painful, right? When you're paying for the certification for yourself. I mean, I'm a John Maxwell certified team member as well. It was painful when I paid for that. I mean, it's great that I'm certified, but it was. and getting it for free.
Sell yourself.
Yeah.
You still got to sell yourself. Look, I've been in these certifications and I got people, I've been in every 15 of us and I'm the only one in the class that's a full-time entrepreneur. I'm from this so-and-so LLC. I'm from this corporation. I'm from that corporation. That cert costs $3,500. They're paying for it.
Yeah.
I'm coming out of my pocket. So
yeah.
I'm like, man, go get that, get that real fast, then come back, because I got love for my people. If you come through my training, I'm not going to tell you to go through the same hurdles I did. And I hate when people do that. Like, you wouldn't even do that in traffic. You would tell somebody immediately, somebody say, hey, how do I get there? Don't go down that road because it's always backed up by 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then you'll tell them the better way to get to the location, right? So you're not going to I would tell them to do that in business. Tell them the better way to do it.
Yeah, for sure. But good stuff. I mean, for those of you listening here today, that's how to do it. Reinvest in yourself. It is painful. 3-5. That's pretty much how much I paid for my John Maxwell certification as well. But once you get certified, that's a big deal. You get access to all these content and you get to learn a lot from whoever is certifying you, stuff that you don't know. Certification does mean something to a lot of people when you're in that business. It is painful though, and not a lot of people do it. I mean, 1 out of 15, Jay, that just shows you how much people reinvest in themselves. And for a lot of those 14 other people in your class, they probably didn't even know or didn't even want to be there, right? So, it's just strange. Yeah.
So,
You're absolutely right. Because I know people, I work with retirees right now, people, baby boomers that's retiring, and they got 100,000 certifications because they've been working at their job 20, 30 years. They don't know what to do with it. But they don't value it because they never paid for it.
Yeah.
It was just, you know what? That was, we have to go to a 2-week training. And this is when they send them to Las Vegas, or they send them to Los Angeles, or they send them somewhere else for a couple of weeks on a company dime, and they're going to trainings all week. This is their extra vacation. They don't care, but they don't realize they're sitting on their 6-figure salary with them certifications that they got all those years. So when they retire, they've been working for 30 years with someone telling them what to do. So now you got to come back to somebody like me to tell you how to activate that certification and use it to your benefit.
Yeah. Strange stuff, right? I mean, but that's how the world works. Now,
Exactly how it works.
I'm wondering, you've been leading for so long, not just other people, but yourself through all these years, and you've gotten a lot of opposition. You faced a lot of opposition. You mentioned earlier that you got people talking differently, talking down at your, talking behind your back when you were starting up. I'm wondering, with all that experience, you probably have a lot of principles, a lot of core values, and you yourself mentioned about that. Those core, you shared with some of those core values earlier. I'm wondering now, what are maybe your top 3 leadership principles that make you roll, make you who you are, and make you successful as far as you're concerned? Can you share that with us?
Well, for me, definitely authenticity is number one. Authenticity, you got to be yourself. A lot of times, and again, I've been in a space where I wasn't, because I was trying to fit in this space. Because again, in business, when you don't have the upper hand, you kind of got to toe the line until you do, or at least you get you on an even playing field. But sometimes you get comfortable in that space, and then you lose yourself. You've been playing that role so long, you think you're at home in that space. So being authentic and remaining authentic, you're actually helping out yourself, which is first, but also in the long run, you're helping yourself out as a leader, because somebody's looking for you. Somebody's looking for that in you so that they can have somebody to show them the way. And a lot of times you'll be surprised that somebody come from where I come from, get a job, and they might not know that I understand their story. And they're struggling. They're struggling to fit in. They're struggling to make it. And if I just showed a little bit of who I was, they'll say, okay, well, if he can do it, I can do it. So number one for me is always about authenticity. You definitely have to be authentic. The integrity piece, your word is everything. A lot of times when you in entrepreneurship, a lot of people think you got money, but you don't, just because you started a business. All you have is your word. All you have is that the fact that you're able to do everything you say you're going to do. And the more that you have, keep your word, it's definitely, you're going to be great. You'll be fine. So just trying to be impeccable with your word. Some things are going to happen that you can't do nothing about, but if you can control it, be impeccable about your word, and then building relationships, of course. You got to be a great relationship builder to be a leader. Like, you can't be a leader if you don't know how to, bring people together. And so, when people talk about me, where I'm from, I want to be like, I'm not a stranger to anybody. So if someone's heard about Jay Halim, especially if you're talking about in the business spectrum, no matter what kind of business it is in my city, somebody knows who I am. That means that I've made a nice dent in the area, of building relationships and making, so I can help individuals, because at leadership, people looking for you to be able to point them in the right direction. So if you don't have a relationship, how can you do that?
Good stuff. And those are principles that you could use when you're starting out as a business owner. So authenticity, integrity, and relationships, that's really, really important stuff.
oh, hey, and since you're here, can you do me a favor? Can you hit on the subscribe button and hit the bell button and select all notifications so that whenever we have a new video, you're going to be the first one to know. Until then, keep leading.
I think that's a really good way to learn and grow your business, instead of going blitz and loaning money and growth, and you're not sure about your finances, where you're bleeding because you're growing so fast, you don't have processes in place, you're churning people, you lose people, you hire people, like you're changing your clothes every day.
You can't just keep trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Like, if that's gone, if you had skills enough to build one thing, you could build something else. Now, we get too sentimental about certain things, and I get it. Maybe you raise your kids in that business. Maybe you raise your kids with the revenue from that business. I get it. But you got to shift. You have to shift, and, you know, you have to pivot. Everybody used to say that word during the pandemic, in the height of it, pivoting. Nobody likes to hear it now, but it's a fact. So being authentic and remaining authentic, you're actually helping out yourself, which is first, but also in the long run, you're helping yourself out as a leader, because somebody's looking for you. Somebody's looking for that in you so that they can have somebody to show them the way.
Now, with leading your own people, like you got 18 people working with you now, what are the 3 things that you use from a day-to-day basis? Because I understand that integrity is still going to be part of it, authenticity as well. Relationship building is more for getting your network, and that's really important stuff when you're an entrepreneur. But is there any other differences between how you lead and manage your people and these 3 major principles that you got in life?
Well, with me and my people, it's all about what they want. And people don't like to hear that, especially owners of businesses. Like, when I hire somebody, I want to know what you want to get out of it. Not saying this is what I want. What do you want to get out of it? Because if I can provide that for you, I'm going to do it. This eliminates excuses. You know, if you come in here and all you want to do is make money, and I feel like I need your services, I'm going to put you in a position where you can make money. Now, for that person, I'm probably going to be a lot harder on that person because it's transactional, you know? So you're here for the money, right? But if you're knocking it out the park, we have no problem, because it's all about the transaction. Some people want to learn. You're still going to make some money, but they want to learn. I'm going to put you in that position so that you can learn. Might be a little hard on you, not as hard as the other person, be a little hard on you because that's how you learn. I'll put you in positions where you can actually grow, where you're going to stumble a little bit, but this is how you're going to learn with hands-on. You know, so I tell people all the time, give people what they want. A lot of time when you start telling people do this, you're going to lose them real quick, because if they don't like it, they're going to be undermining. They're going to be trying to do other things, trying to find other places to work. Now, I have a client right now who I consult with, who literally, you know, he has a trucking company. He hires the guy in not even a week. He got his truck at FedEx applying for a job with his truck, with his 18-wheeler. You understand what I'm saying? So it was something going on in the hiring process with that. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day,
That's great. Oh man,
you know, like what did you want out of it? You know,
yeah.
We reverse engineering that and getting and saying, hey, what do you want out of this job? What do you want out of this position? I know this is what we need, but what are you going to get out of it? What is the benefit? How can working with me benefit you? You know, for your career.
Mm-hmm.
What vision? This is the vision for my company. What vision can you see? Can you create within our vision for yourself? Because the people not getting what they need to get, they're going to leave. They're going to leave, and that's just the honest truth. Of course, you know, being cognizant of everybody, that everybody's different, and so you got to deal with each individual differently. You know, there's no favoritism, but again, some people need certain things at different times. Again, it's like somebody losing a family member. You're going to show a little extra love to that person this week or that month. There's no favoritism, but a lot of managers and owners don't know how to do that. It's just everything is about bottom line. You know, you're creating a community, and if you can't do anything, these are the people you're going to be counting on to still bring in money for you to take care of your family. So you got to be cognizant of that.
Yeah. Let's play that out a little bit further. When you say that you want them to get what they want, how far do you go to meet that? For example, when they say, I know this sounds a little bit shallow, but when they say, I want my own car, I want my own house, right? So it's not like I want security for my family, but really tangible things. I'm just trying to make it easier for you. How far do you go to meet that? Do you give them a bigger salary? What does it look like?
Oh, no, not nothing like that. But what this is like, okay, I'll give you an example. My assistant who you talk to right now, well, she's also a book coach. That's how I hired her. She helped me my book. And, you know, so I put her in a position where she can have an office and she can have a place to actually still do her business on the side. in my company. So instead of you going to somebody else, you got to do it on the side and taking you away. Let me make room for you to be able to do what you need to do within my company, and so that you can still be safe and comfortable doing it. Now, her price point is higher. You know what I'm saying? She can charge more because before she was doing it from her house. Now you have an office space. Now you look better. You know, you have more equipment. You have more things at your disposal. You know, you have a team at your disposal to help you get a project done. So now you can charge more. And she does. She's charging almost 3 times the amount at this point. She's been with me for 2 years. So that is helping her have what she wants. So why would she leave me? Why would she not want to do what she need to do for me? This is the machine that's helped you be able to do what you need to do. And so that's a perfect illustration of what that looks like.
That's really good stuff. Jay, before we end this, and I learned a ton, we are better for it. What will be your, the pandemic happened, a lot of businesses closed down. I just came from the mall yesterday with my wife. We had a checkup somewhere in the hospital, went to the mall for dinner. Now I look around, it used to be a bustling mall, a lot of stores open. Here in the Philippines, malls are super big because you got aircon every day and it's pretty hot. And these stores are just closed. Look, it's still a sad thing to see that, after 2 years almost of the pandemic hitting us and lockdowns happening. What will be your best advice for entrepreneurs who are still in that rut where they're just trying to think if they're going to throw in the towel and finally give up?
Don't give up. Shift. You got to shift. You have to shift. I heard this years ago, say the smartest people in business know when to let something go, not how to hold on to something. So they always say the new normal, certain things that we had before the pandemic is never going to be again, and you have to be that person. Don't be a Blockbuster. Don't be a Kodak. Don't be these people, Sears Roebuck. Like, don't be these people that don't shift in business with the time. Get some training, get that certification. Right now, some people are offering it for free, now, and learn something else, learn a new skill, get to meet some new people that you go to a new city. Every city is not shut down. I know, and here, Atlanta, Georgia never shut down. This whole state of Florida never shut down. So if you want to work in the States, go to Georgia, go to Florida. Texas is another state that barely ever shut down. So, Elon Musk just moved his whole company to Texas. So, you have to be willing to shift. The people who didn't shift is the ones who, because there was so much opportunity as entrepreneurs. And I always told people, I said this all through the pandemic. The pandemic is and was horrible for health. But in business, the pandemic can be anything. You think about the people with Uber, taxi cab drivers, Uber was their pandemic at one point. The pandemic can be you getting sick without COVID-19. You still have other things. So we had a 1,000-year flood in 2015 here. That's a pandemic. You had literally businesses underwater here. That's for a business. That was just like the pandemic. What did they do? They rebuild. They went and got another space. They got the government assistance and went ahead on and did something different. You can't just keep trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Like, if that's gone, if you had skills enough to build one thing, you could build something else. Now, we get too sentimental about certain things, and I get it. Maybe you raise your kids in that business. Maybe you raise your kids with the revenue from that business. I get it. But you got to shift. You have to shift, and, you have to pivot. Everybody used to say that word during the pandemic, in the height of it, pivoting. Nobody likes to hear it now, but it's a fact. It's a paradigm shift now. Things are different. And it's okay for you to go ahead and learn new skills, but you got to continue to get better. You got to continue to learn things. I'm in classes now, still getting better. I'm going for a master coaching class as we speak right now that I paid for out of pocket, a certification. So because I want to continue to earn, I want to continue to earn more. I want to go to bigger markets and be able to compete. And so I know through investing, that's how I'm going to get it. But if you don't have it, the government gave people hundreds of millions of dollars over here. So somebody got the money. I hope you're not, spending on the wrong things. Reinvest and build your business back up.
Wow, that's good stuff. Props to the government over there that help support the people and the small business owners. We don't got that here at all. You got to make do with what you got. And that's what makes an entrepreneur.
I'll tell you one story real fast before we go. Like, again, running the media company, we doing photography and film. Well, we didn't have any film, jobs since then. We have major workshops and things like that. I mean, we fly to different places, California, filming functions and all over the country. That stuff was shut down. I wrote a book during the pandemic. I started doing virtual trainings during the pandemic. And my book, You Won't Starve, I wrote that in the height of the pandemic, is a training manual. Well, people started buying my book to get their training. And then now, okay, we need you to do a training. We're going to do it virtually. So now I'm doing virtual trainings all over the world because of the pandemic. So it created opportunities just as well as it took away opportunities. Some of those jobs is $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 jobs that we don't have anymore. Now, some of them are starting to come back around as things open up, but it's very, very slow. It's not sustainable to what we were used to business-wise, but we had to create in other places. So here you are. You have to keep it going, keep doing different things.
Good stuff. That's good stuff. Agree with you 100%. And Jay, well, if people want to buy your book, if people want to get in touch with you, what are some of the best places for them to do that?
Everything is www.jhalim.com. They can Google me, Google Jay Halim. Everything about me pops up. Either one of my books, I Won't Starve, You Won't Starve. All that stuff is on my website. I Won't Starve and You Won't Starve is pretty much online, anywhere books are sold. Of course, Amazon, Walmart, pretty much anywhere. But definitely the best place is my website. You can find all of them. Motivation is the baby new. So it's on Amazon, it's on my website. I think it's on a couple other ones, but it hasn't gotten the circulation yet, but it's going away. So a little bit like over a month old. But my books are pretty much anywhere online wherever you shop for books. But come to my website, see some of our clothing and all the other stuff we got.
That is amazing. It's good stuff. And for those of you listening, we're going to have all of those links on the show notes. Just look for Jay Halim on leadershipstack.com. We're going to have all the links there, his LinkedIn profile, everything to make it easier for you. Hey, Jay, thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate you giving your time. I know it's 10 p.m. there. You might be sleepy.
Nice.
And
I'm good, man. Thank you so much.
So happy to learn from you, to hear from you, to listen to your story. That is an amazing story you got there, and we are better for it.
No problem. And if you guys are doing something over there, I travel. I got a passport. So let's work something out, man. I want to see what you guys are doing in the Philippines.
Yeah, whenever you're here or if you're coming over, hit me up. I'm going to fetch you from the airport. I live nearby, and I'm going to show you around.
I love it. I love it, man. I really appreciate you. Thank you. Love what you're doing, man.
No problem. Thanks so much.
Oh, hey, and since you're here, can you do me a favor? Can you hit on the subscribe button and hit the bell button and select all notifications so that whenever we have a new video, you're going to be the first one to know. Until then, keep leading.
If you know that you did everything that you can and it's really not working, parang wag na. It's not even healthy even for you.
100%. So if you don't let it go, guess what? It's going to quit on you. It's going to let itself go someday. You're going to lose a lot of money anyway.
Because one's natural inclination is to bounce in there and do it for them and help out, because that's what we want to do. We want to help people, but you can't. You're actually going to have to stand back, and you're going to have to work on you, and you're going to have to let them develop, because that's how you get better people. Don't let that lack of knowledge hold you back, because so many of us are really ignorant when we start. And even people who've gone to colleges and got book learning, it doesn't totally prepare you for the experience, I don't think. And so don't let that lack of knowledge, don't let anything that frightens you hold you back. You're only going to start, and at worst you'll fail, but at least you'll have tried.
So I'm going to rewind back to the top 3 tips that you gave earlier. The first one was lack of knowledge. And I'm wondering, how did you get over that feeling that, I just couldn't figure out, I need a lead, I need someone to help me, I need a mentor here, or I have no idea how to do that. So might as well not try. How'd you get over that?
There's two separate things going on there, I think. The might as well not try didn't come into it because of the children, which was wonderful. There just was no option to fail. I had to make it a success. And as it grew, of course, inevitably I had to borrow money to fund the first factory. And, that meant to some degree guaranteeing against a family home. And that meant it was even less possible to fail, So I was absolutely blinkered for all those early years. It had to work, whatever it took, which helps. So that not doing it didn't come into it. But I think fear of the knowledge and fear of failing. The knowledge, I knew nothing. I hadn't had a decent business before of any size. I hadn't held a position in a corporate of any height. I simply didn't know what I was doing from start to finish. But as it grew, people begin to get to know your business and know, and you get called a business leader and these things, and you scratch your head and think, they're not talking about me, and you get, certainly for me, and I think for a lot of people, you get this imposter syndrome come in and, you think, I remember the first time I won an award, I won some business coaching. And it was this lovely lady actually who I kept in touch with for a long time afterwards. But, she had a joint degree from Oxford in, I think it was Russian and psychology. So just about as frightening as you can get for somebody who was pretty ignorant and untrained and, run loads of businesses, etc., etc. And I thought, I can't bear this. She's going to come into and coach me and she's going to find out. She's going to find out I don't know anything and I'm so useless and I'm ignorant and, they're going to take the award away. I was really, really terrified of it and, convinced that I didn't know anything. And oddly enough, in those days, because I was determined for all that I might have climbed walls, I didn't actually let that stop me. I just thought I've got, if you just keep trying. It was later on when I began to scale that I became more aware because I started talking to other business leaders more. And I became more aware that, actually I hadn't done anything on the personal development front. And it was about time I did. And I started, so about 10 years in, I started to go and do courses on business, which was somewhat late. But, I don't think that ignorance should ever stop you. I really don't. In some ways, it was less daunting when I was convinced I knew nothing. When I found out there was more to know, it was even more frightening still.
For sure. And I love that being a single mom was your biggest driver. It's a blessing in disguise somewhat for your life, because being an entrepreneur is a noble thing. You create jobs, opportunities for other people, you help the economy, you influence other people. It is a noble thing to be an entrepreneur. And I love it when you mentioned about the imposter syndrome, because a lot of business owners are also in your position during that time where it seems so surreal. I'm doing business. I have people in my team and I have I've been recognized here and there, and I love how you got to validate your position in business, which is, you were saying that it's when you scaled up. Now, I would love to talk more about this scaling up, because they say 9 out of 10 businesses fail in the first 5 years. That's a very, very tough number, 10%, to graduate from the first 5 years. How were you able to graduate that first 5 years and finally scale it up? Because you can't scale up if you're not yet done with the startup phase.
No, you can't. And I have to say, I think it varies sort of when scaling sets in, depending on sector a lot, and on time of your business. And I mean, tech's obviously moved scaling into a new dimension. But, for me in manufacturing, it was a gradual thing. And it's something a lot of people do, is just continue growing without thinking growth's a great idea, which in theory it is, but without sort of actually learning about scaling. And to me now, scaling is almost like a new phase, like a startup all over again. It's a new journey. It's a different journey. And I really wish I'd found that out somewhere in the earlier stages, because I think the best thing you could do is gear your business to that if that's where you're going to go. Though, of course, I would never have believed that I could have gone there anyway. So I guess that was another reason I didn't. But I doubt if I knew word scale at that point anyway. So it's different. But yeah, it's hard. It's difficult to scale up. You've got so many complete transformations of your business, from a startup. As you said, going from a team of, sort of a couple of you to a team of 40 is an incredibly difficult thing to do. And I don't think I necessarily did it very well. But it was all learning on the hoof. It's really difficult.
What are some of the biggest differences between that first 5 years of the startup phase to the scale up phase? What for you, aside from the employee numbers, of course, the employee number count, one of the most evident growths or one of the most evidences of your growth, right? Yeah. Is your employee count or your client count. But what are the other main differences between that startup and scale up phase?
Right. Okay. I think one of the main differences, let's see if we can pick some main ones for you. I think one of them is that you've got to develop in a massive different way. I think startups, and probably one of the reasons you can get away with being ignorant, is, you're all new and you're finding your feet, whatever you're doing, how much knowledge you've got. And it's tremendous fun and you make mistakes, and that's all part of the startup, and it's not too disastrous. When it comes to scaling up, you're creating a business that will run eventually without you altogether, or with you so step back, depending at what stage. But you're actually creating a separate entity with you looking in, and you're changing your child from a toddler to a teenager to an adult, if you like. And I think that means that you've got to learn so much. You've got to learn to become a very different type of leader. In fact, it's about being a leader rather than being in the business, doing this, doing that, helping out here, jumping on that. You've got to stop all that. You've got to stand back and say, my job is to lead. And that's really hard to do, to step back and be the leader.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And I love when you mentioned that during the startup phase, you're usually the go-to person. Let me do that. Let me finish that. Hey, do you need help with this? And when you're in this scale-up phase, you mentioned that you're going to have to be a leader. Look, Jan, a lot of people, when they hear leader, the thing that comes to mind is the guy or the girl that's most paid, that gets the special parking slot, that gets the special corner office, that gets all the perks of the executives. Like, these are the things that come to mind in our world today when you say leader. So what do you mean when you mentioned earlier that you're going to have to be a leader in the scale-up space?
As a leader, you've got to be the one who continually inspires people, which doesn't have anything to do with the pay of the office or any of those things you mentioned, and unfortunately. But you've got to be the one that gets everybody going. That can be your investors, your stakeholders, your people most of all. You've got to lay out that vision and get people so excited that they want to get on that train ride. And they want to develop themselves and do better still the next day. And you've also got to find the people to do it. If you can do those things, if you can lay on a vision and keep people on side and inspired, and keep finding people who are ideally better than you are. And that means you've got to be pretty secure, because you've got to take on people who you look at and think, they know a lot more than I do. But those are the people who are going to take your business forward. So yeah, it's a lot about finding the right people with, there's a lovely, I think it is Warren Buffett quote, that you need intelligence, integrity, and energy. That's right, because if the people you need to take on, you want them to be intelligent, you want them to be good at pushing the business forward. But you want them to have the energy. You know, there's nothing worse than working with flat, negative people who go, oh, yeah, we could do that. You know, you want them to go, wow, how exciting. And that helps you feed off their energy too. You know, and I think that's really big, and people forget that, you know, that you need that energy to flow both ways. You know, then it's back to the integrity thing, of course, you know, because they have to genuinely buy into your vision, as well as, you know, integrity at the other end of not actually helping themselves do everything in the business. But like we were talking about earlier.
For sure. And you mentioned that in the startup phase, we both agreed that you're the go-to person.
Yes.
During the scale-up phase, when you're the one, in your words, casting the vision and inspiring your people, does that mean you stop being the go-to person for these tasks?
Yeah, it does. And I think that's really hard. I mean, you know, to some extent, you need to be available, you know, which is a different thing from being the person who steps in and does for you. You have to let go and let them do, because you simply can't do the visionary stuff otherwise. You have to be on peak performance. And I think that's one of the really hard transferences, because going back to the people we are with the imposter syndrome, and we know we've got a lot wrong and all this, you know, to say I am worth, because I am leader, I am worth saying, no, you damn well do it. You know, I'm going to stand back from here and I'm not going to be the one who works till midnight, is really, really hard, because one's natural inclination is to bounce in there and do it for them and help out, because that's what we want to do. We want to help people, but you can't. You're actually going to have to stand back, and you're going to have to work on you, and you're going to have to let them develop, because that's how you get better people.
Paint a picture about your day-to-day now that you're in the scale-up phase, you're developing yourself, you're inspired. Like, how does that look like when you're inspiring people and casting the vision? I get the picture of this person might not be getting anything done, and you know, your people might see that, you know, the boss is all talk. He's all inspiration. She's all about vision, but she's not doing a lot of the heavy lifting. I'm doing it. Like, how do you balance that out?
I agree, and it does look like that to a lot of people, which is horrible. I mean, firstly, you've got to think about the money, because you need to keep money flowing into that business. And if you're scaling, that's growth, and it might mean more money at certain times, and you've got to make sure it's there when it's needed. But equally, you're not borrowing way too much and running up enormous interest bills. And, you know, so it's that balance with the money thing all the time. So, you know, that's something that probably nobody else can do. At that sort of what I call early scale up. You might have accountants and things who help out, or financial directors later on. But at that point, you're very, very focused on the money. You're very focused on developing the business on a day-to-day basis, making sure that's going on, you know, because you've got to change from being, you know, everybody jump in and do everything business, to being a systemized business with people doing specific things as best as they can. You've got to spend time with your people. You know, they need a lot of your time to inspire them and to give them feedback and to involve them. And, you know, as I say, you've got to develop yourself, you know, to learn more about how to grow your business, to come up with new ideas, to increase profitability, to look for new markets and find new people. Finding new people is going to take a huge amount of your time. It's really time absorbing to find people, especially good people. And your business will only grow as good as your people are.
Completely agree with that. It is hard to find good people. And for a lot of people who is in business, that statement right there is fiction, because they feel like they never find the right people.
Yeah.
So how did you do it, Jan? How do you find these people?
I struggled. I mean, like everybody, I had very good people in the early stages, you know, who were very on side and helped that early growth to early scale. and the culture was 100% right. And, you know, that combination of culture and people and vision, when you get them right, is just unstoppable. And it grows too. You get a reputation for it. You know, I remember people coming in and saying, you know, I mean, I know there's probably not much hope of me working here, but, you know, because everybody wants to, but, you know, I really want a job here. But as it grew, actually, that culture diluted, because the people you start with often can't grow as fast as the business, and you often need to bring in people from outside. They may not even want to, in fairness. They may have started with a nice little cozy business, but small. And, you know, the last thing I want to do is go in for all this stress and huge amounts of everything. So it may be their choice as much as anything, which it certainly was in the case of my two. But either way, you know, you start to need to bring in the outside people, and that was a lot harder. The ones I had in the early days were definitely a lot better.
For sure. And in SEO Hacker, we are doing that right now. And it is tough because you just don't know if they're the right person and how they're going to be affecting your culture. Because usually when you say you're bringing in outside people, these are people who have experience and good authority in what they do. They know their stuff. And they're going to be mixing in with your people who have grown with you, pretty tender. And you're just not going to know how the waters are going to be churned during that time.
It's so true. And it can be a real oil and water mix, you know, hate on side, because the existing people are terrified of being changed and what they like being taken away. You know, You're absolutely right. It's a really difficult integration, that.
For sure.
Oh, hey, and since you're here, can you do me a favor? Can you hit on the subscribe button and hit the bell button and select all notifications so that whenever we have a new video, you're going to be the first one to know. Until then, keep leading.
And so a lot of people today, their just do it habit sometimes involves just opening Shopee and Lazada. And, you know, those are wonderful e-commerce platforms, but once you spend time with them unnecessarily and unproductively, you start buying stuff that you don't need. And that's not going to be good for you.